Hockey isn't just about speed, goals, and glory. For decades, it's also been about raw toughness. The kind of toughness that doesn't just show up on the scoreboard, but in the middle of the ice when two giants throw down in front of thousands of screaming fans. These aren't just scuffles. These are battles that become part of NHL history. Rivalries, revenge, pride, blood. Tonight, we're going back through the chaos, the madness, and the unforgettable moments to relive the top 10 fights in NHL history. Make no mistake, these fights weren't just punches, they were turning points. Some ignited rivalries that lasted years. Some sparked team brawls that cleared entire benches. And some became so legendary that fans still talk about them decades later. So buckle up, because we're starting from number 10. And trust me, every single one of these will leave you shaking your head saying, did that really happen on the ice? Number 10. Van den Bussche versus Friedrich. This one was like watching two bulldozers smash into each other over and over again. Neither guy wanted to back off. Gloves hit the ice, fists started flying, and within seconds, the crowd knew they were watching something special. Van den Bussche and Friedrich didn't waste a second. It was punch for punch, blow for blow, with both men eating hits and throwing them right back. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't clean, it was raw aggression at its best. By the time the refs pulled them apart, nobody cared who won. The fact that both men stayed standing after that war was enough to make it unforgettable. Number 9. Keane versus Walker. If number 10 was explosive, this one was relentless. Keane and Walker dropped the gloves and just didn't stop. It was like neither man remembered what it felt like to get tired. Every time one slowed down, the other threw another punch to keep it going. Fans live for this kind of fight, the ones that feel like they might go forever. Grappling, swinging, taking shots, and refusing to back off. At one point, you could see it in their faces. Both men were exhausted, but neither wanted to be the first to quit. That's what makes it legendary. Not just the punches, but the heart behind them. Number 8. Angelstad versus Hordichuk. If you like heavy hitters, this is the one. Angelstad and Hordichuk weren't playing games. Every punch sounded like it echoed through the arena. They came out swinging wild, but it wasn't just wild swings. These were bombs. Hordichuk landed some big ones, but Angelstad kept coming right back like a machine. It was a battle of pure power, and fans knew they were watching two of the toughest guys in the game prove themselves. By the time the refs stepped in, you could see both of them breathing heavy, helmets loose, jerseys pulled, and still ready for more. That's the kind of fight that makes highlight reels forever. Number 7. Probert versus Cox. And here comes the first appearance of a man whose name is written all over hockey fight history. Bob Probert. He wasn't just an enforcer, he was the enforcer. And this scrap against Cox showed why. Probert didn't just throw punches, he controlled the fight. His size, his reach, his ability to take shots and keep throwing them made him a nightmare opponent. In this fight, you can see Cox trying everything he can, landing his own shots, but Probert just keeps hammering back, eventually dragging his rival down to the ice. It's a brutal reminder of why Probert's name comes up again and again when you talk about the greatest fighters the sport has ever seen. And the crazy part? That's just the beginning. We're only at number 7, and the names and rivalries that are about to show up take these fights to another level. You think you've seen intensity? Stick around, because coming up we've got rivalries that shook the league, fights that turned into legends and brawls so big they nearly stopped games in their tracks. Number 6. Probert versus McSorley. Now if you thought Probert's fight with Cox was wild, to just wait. Because when Probert locked horns with Martin McSorley, it was like two wrecking balls colliding at full speed. This wasn't just another hockey fight. It was two of the biggest names in the enforcer world throwing down in a heavyweight clash that fans will never forget. The second their gloves hit the ice, it was chaos. McSorley came out swinging hard and Probert answered right back, both landing haymakers that had the crowd roaring. Jerseys were flying, helmets knocked loose, and at one point McSorley's jersey even came off completely, which only made it look even more raw. The punches didn't stop, and every hit looked like it could knock a man down cold. Neither fighter wanted to give an inch. For fans, this was everything you could want in a hockey brawl. Brutal, balanced, and absolutely legendary. Number 5. Probert versus Domi. Now here we go. If there's one rivalry that defines NHL fighting, it's Bob Probert versus Ty Domi. You couldn't script this better if you tried. Probert was the undisputed king of hockey fights, a giant with fists of steel. And Domi, he was smaller, scrappier, and absolutely fearless. Every time these two faced off, fans held their breath because they knew something unforgettable was about to happen. One of their most famous battles started with no hesitation. Gloves dropped, fists flying right away. Probert hammered with his reach, while Domi ducked and countered, refusing to go down. They traded bombs, neither backing off, and the arena erupted with every punch. At one point, Domi even mocked Probert by pretending to strap on an invisible championship belt, as if to say, I just went toe-to-toe with the king. That taunt made the rivalry burn even hotter. Fans still talk about these fights like they were heavyweight boxing matches, not just hockey scraps. They weren't just fights, they were events. And in the world of hockey, nothing pulls in more electricity than Probert versus Domi. Number 4. Mrazek versus Jablonski. Now, before we get into the absolute top 3, we have to talk about one of the most chaotic bare-knuckle brawls you'll ever see. John Mrazek versus Jeremy Jablonski. These two fighters weren't just tough, they were relentless, and when they clashed, it turned into a storm of fists right in the middle of the ice. Picture it, both men bald, both built like tanks, and both grinning as they just stood there swinging. Punch after punch after punch, neither man backing off, both looking like they actually enjoyed the punishment. You could see sweat flying with every hit. You could feel the energy crackling in the air. And the crazy part, they just kept going, minute after minute, exchanging haymakers until they were both drained but still swinging. When the refs finally stepped in, the crowd gave them a roar like they had just watched a championship fight. This one isn't just about who landed more shots or who walked away stronger. It's about the show, the sheer willpower of two men who refused to fall, giving fans a fight they would never forget. And now the countdown is about to hit overdrive, because the top 3 fights on this list aren't just scraps. They're legendary moments that shook the league, broke rivalries wide open, and left scars on both players and history. These are the ones fans still debate years later, the kind of battles that made people say, this is why hockey fights are different. So get ready, because next up, we step into the true Hall of Fame of NHL fights. Number 3. McGrattan versus Maggio. When Brian McGrattan stepped onto the ice, everybody knew what was about to happen. He wasn't just another tough guy. He was a mountain of a man with fists that could turn the tide of a game. And when he squared up with Dennis Maggio, the building shook with anticipation. You'd feel it before the gloves even hit the ice. The moment they locked eyes, it was on. Punches started flying fast and heavy, both fighters swinging like their lives depended on it. The first few seconds were dead even, both trading bombs. But then McGrattan found his rhythm. Fans in the crowd were on their feet, roaring as Maggio tried to hold his ground but couldn't keep up with the onslaught. And then it happened. McGrattan landed a clean, crushing right hand that sent Maggio down to the ice. The place absolutely erupted. McGrattan proved in that moment why his name still echoes whenever people talk about the toughest men in hockey. Number 2. Peters versus Johnson. If number 3 was about dominance, number 2 was about shock. Andrew Peters and Craig Johnson squared up at center ice, and right from the start, the energy was different. Fans knew this wasn't going to be just another wrestling match on skates. The two circled, dropped their gloves, and immediately started hammering each other. Both landed heavy shots, but then Johnson landed the punch, a thunderous right hand straight to Peters' jaw. Peters crumpled to the ice, stunned and unable to recover right away. The crowd gasped. The refs rushed in. Peters had to be helped after the hit, and Johnson walked away with the kind of respect that only comes when you take down a known enforcer with one clean strike. One single punch made it unforgettable. Sometimes in the world of hockey fights, it only takes one. Number 1. Pete versus Stock. And here we are, the number 1 fight. The clash that sits on top of so many highlight reels. The brawl that still gets fans fired up years later. Pete versus Stock. From the very first second, it was pure chaos. Gloves off, fists swinging, both men going full throttle without a single moment of hesitation. They weren't fearing each other out, they weren't looking for control, they were just unloading everything they had. Shot after shot, punch after punch, both fighters refusing to slow down. It was like watching two machines programmed for destruction. Most fights have a moment where both guys pause, try to catch their breath, grab the jersey, slow it down. Not this one. Pete and Stock just kept swinging, feeding off the crowd and off each other's stubbornness. By the time the officials finally pulled them apart, both men were bloodied, exhausted, and still ready to go. The crowd went absolutely insane. And for that reason, it stands at number 1, a fight that fans will never forget, and one that shows why hockey has a fighting history unlike any other sport. And yet, while this top 10 list is packed with incredible one-on-one clashes, some of the most unforgettable moments in NHL history weren't just fights between two men. They were full-scale wars, team against team, with chaos exploding all over the ice. And those are the brawls that we're about to dive into next. You thought one-on-one fights were wild. That was just the appetizer. Now it's time for the full meal. The all-out wars where gloves, sticks, and sometimes even benches went flying. These weren't just fights. These were battles that left scars on the game, shook the league, and had fans talking for decades. The Good Friday Massacre. Montreal versus Quebec, 1984. The name says it all. It was Good Friday 1984. Montreal Canadiens against the Quebec Nordiques in a playoff game that was already boiling with tension, but nobody expected what was about to happen. It started with a few scrums, some shoving, the kind of bad blood you see in every playoff series. But then, boom, an explosion of chaos. Players dropped gloves everywhere, the benches cleared, referees trying to keep control, but they were completely overwhelmed. The fights weren't quick little scuffles. They dragged on, wave after wave, fists flying as fans screamed from the stands. And here's the kicker, the teams fought so much that the referees ejected players, only for those same players to come back out for the next period because nobody told them they were actually gone. So as the puck dropped again, chaos erupted all over again. It was so out of control, so violent, that the NHL had to rewrite its rulebook to prevent anything like it from happening again. But for fans, that night was unforgettable. Fight night at the Joe, Detroit versus Colorado, 1997. If the Good Friday Massacre was brutal, then Fight Night at the Joe was pure revenge. This one wasn't random, it was personal. The Detroit Red Wings and the Colorado Avalanche already hated each other. That rivalry was built on blood, and the bad blood had been boiling since Claude Lemieux's infamous hit on Chris Draper the year before, a hit that left Draper with a shattered face. The Red Wings wanted payback, and on March 26, 1997, they got it. The game was intense from the start, every check heavier than the last, the tension ready to snap. And then it did. Darren McCarty hunted down Lemieux, and what followed was pure madness. McCarty pounded him on the ice, fists raining down as Lemieux totaled, helpless. But it didn't stop there. Patrick Roy, the legendary goalie for Colorado, skated across the ice ready to throw hands, only to be met by Detroit's goalie Mike Vernon. The arena was shaking. Every single player seemed to be in on it. Punches, scrums, pile-ups. It was mayhem. That night changed everything, fueling a rivalry that defined an entire era of hockey. These weren't just brawls. These were stories, legends, the kind of moments that still give fans chills. But we're not done yet, because as crazy as these battles were, there's one that stands above them all. You've seen one-on-ones, you've seen team-wide melees, but what happens when both benches empty at once and no one, not refs, not coaches, not even security, can stop it? What you get is absolute chaos. And one of the wildest examples of that madness came in the 1987 brawl between Canada and the Soviet Union at the World Junior Championship. Picture it, two powerhouse teams, fueled by national pride, facing off in Czechoslovakia. Emotions were running sky high. The Soviets were frustrated, the Canadians were fiery, and one spark was all it took. That spark came in the second period. One fight broke out, then another, and suddenly everyone jumped in. The benches didn't just clear, they emptied like a flood. Over 20 players on the ice, fists flying in every direction. Jerseys were yanked, helmets were tossed, and the officials, they had no chance. The crowd was stunned. The TV broadcast even cut to black because officials didn't want the world to see the mayhem. And when it was finally over, the result wasn't just penalties. Both entire teams were disqualified from the tournament. The message was clear. This wasn't just hockey history. This was hockey infamy. But here's the thing about fights. The bigger they get, the more legendary they become. Get ready, because the #1 fight in NHL history isn't just a brawl. It's the brawl. And now here it is. The one fight that stands above the rest. The fight that isn't just remembered, it's mythologized. The fight that turned a regular night into hockey legend. We're talking about the Battle of Madison Square Garden. New York Rangers versus New Jersey Devils, 1992. It was March 1992, and the tension between these two teams was already off the charts. This wasn't just a game, this was war brewing under the ice. And then, the opening face-off dropped. Within seconds, the gloves weren't just off, they were everywhere. Boom! One fight broke out, then another, and another. Within moments, the ice was a battlefield. Even the goalies went at it. And you know what, goalies are throwing haymakers, it's something special. But here's what makes this fight #1. It didn't happen once. It happened twice in the same game. That's right, round 2 of absolute mayhem. Fans were losing their minds. The penalty box was so full they practically needed extra seats. Punch after punch, shove after shove. The hatred between these two teams spilled out in full. This wasn't just about fists. This was about pride, about dominance, about two teams proving they would not back down. And that's why it takes the crown as the greatest fight in NHL history. But let's be honest, every single fight on this list has its own place in hockey lore. From Probert's Iron Fists to Domi's fearless duels, from the Good Friday Massacre to Fight Night at the Joe, each one gave fans a moment they'll never forget. That's the beauty of hockey fights. They're brutal, they're chaotic, they're sometimes downright insane, but they're also the heartbeat of the game. They remind us that hockey isn't just about scoring goals or lifting trophies. It's about passion. It's about rivalry. It's about going to war for your team, no matter what it takes. So next time you hear someone talk about the good old days of hockey fights, you'll know exactly why these moments still echo decades later. And with that, we've hit the end of our countdown. The top 10 fights in NHL history, told through blood, sweat, and a whole lot of fists. If you're a fan of hockey, you know this list barely scratches the surface. But one thing's for sure, when the gloves come off, that's when the real stories begin.